topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Language of Healing on Talk4 TV and W4CY Radio. And today we're talking about seasonal aphrodisiacs, food, mood, and pleasure of life. And we know about the food; it might affect our mood. You might know that. We might know this. There's many conversations around that idea, and that's connecting our mind and body relations, right? Today we're diving a little bit deeper into the heart aspect, mind, body, heart, and the pleasure and the desire, really, that drives us and motivates us and gives us that lustiness of life. And it's about squeezing all the juice out of life that you can and enjoying the senses. And how can that help us, support us in getting more of what we want? And today's conversation, we've got sex coach MaryFrances Barbisan, and she's going to dive deep into this conversation with us around using the mouth as a seductive tool for receiving that pleasure through food, life, through a lover. And so, I'm excited to jump in here with MaryFrances. She is a nurse turned sex coach, a registered massage therapist doing work with Craniosacral and Reiki, and even a sommelier. So this woman knows foods, she knows moods, and she knows about the pleasure. Let's welcome her today. We've got her with us, MaryFrances. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hi. So what might, just so, our viewers and listeners can hear, what is a sex coach? So you're an internationally certified sex coach.
You bet. It's that person that no one else is. For example, if you had a question, concern, you need some information, and you go, your family doctor's not educated in this realm, neither is your fitness coach, your nutrition coach, your life coach, your business coach. So this is just that realm of sacred space, a personal private space where I work with clients, on their intimate questions and concerns, and how to just really light up life, and on all levels, a multitude of levels. So I'm that person you go to when we're trying to, unpack some stories and release and ignite that juiciness in who we are on all levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because you have the nursing background, you understand the body quite well, and maybe what kinds of illnesses or things that really bother people, right? And this topic is hard to bring up. Someone might not even know that they have something to bring up, and you add quite a lightness, and making a lighthearted conversation out of something that's a bit.
Well, it's precious, and it's precious, and it's serious, and there's concerns that get ignored, and a lot of us were not brought up to ask questions and really get clarity on being that sexual person. So in that sacred space, I think there's a lot of pushing down of the. It's so obvious that it's not. Does that make sense? It's so obvious to somebody that there's something missing, but they're still pushing it down and not willing to come forward unless I'm literally that guiding hand to offer an opening up to a greater possibility. And I think we're changing the tides as far as, obviously, we're on the show today, opening up conversation like this.
Yeah, because I think it is just one portal of entry, if you will,
There's
as
several. There's several.
into
Yeah.
tapping into our like intuitiveness, right? Like knowing our bodies and knowing what it wants, whether that be like through food, mood, pleasure, right?
Food, mood, and pleasure. So what I love about our topic today is food is going in one portal, right? Our mouth. And because I've been, out of my endless curiosity, I became a sommelier, which is a wine person, educated person. And so we had to establish learning how to actually feel a liquid in our mouth, and its textures and oiliness and its crispness. So it became sort of a foundational piece on, let's use that as a continuation of slowing down and being aware in our body. So when we talk about food, so that's going in there, and mood. So we've got, the mood is our what we're feeling typically up here, and our food is going down there. And we've got this sort of place in between that is affecting how we be.
Yeah, and that's the heart piece to me, right? Like heart and spirit. That's bringing in, because we know about okay, food is body, right? And mood, yeah, the mind. But where's like the heart in it? Where's the,
so that
I guess like
energetic heart, right? There's that energy of heart and love and compassion and tenderness. And then there's the heart that's actually beating. So what I love about our topic today about the pleasure, and we decided to look at what's an aphrodisiac as far as pleasure, and how does that appeal not simply to the physical heart, that it's got its healthy nutrients, but also to that emotional heart, and really tying that into pleasure.
Right. And the heart is so connected to desire. It's like, what does my heart desire?
Right. You don't say, what does my hand desire?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, or desire. Yeah.
I mean, you could say that about like your body, what does my body desire? And I think we're more in tune with things like that. Like, okay, I need to take care of my body, Oh, and then I'm taking care of my mental, emotional health, right? It's like mind, but the heart and this like deeper sense for more, deeper desire for more. And I think this is where we see that low level depression, when the unexpressed desires are just,
right. That whole thing of all of it, not even knowing there is that desire, that potential, because I'm finding so many people are burnt out, tired out, worn out, and even dried out. And it becomes impossible then to resource enough vitality to even start to look at how to have more. So I call it a little bit of, sometimes it's incremental progress. And other times someone just says, I'm diving in, let's really make some change. And so the food and the mood is a key piece in what is pleasure and what is healthy. Because I hear all the time, oh, here's the healthy choices. And I've got a big background in nutrition, and so do you. And that's okay. But for example, it's healthy to eat garlic, for example. So for some people, that's their potion. It's a good thing that they do. And for me, it's a poison. I can't stand it. I feel horrible. So looking at food, which is somebody's potion and somebody else's poison, versus, we're supposed to have these things. And I think when we really feel into what's that magic potion, like we talked about on our last show together, about that cauldron of the belly, and stoking those fires through what really we like, versus, you're Googling the to-do list of food and mood things, right?
Yeah, because it's not like, we're not really textbook, it's all so individual based, and to have a bit of guidance or support into maybe uncovering, those blind spots, or what is your potion, what is your poison. I think we all know, like, you get something, that it's going to put you over the edge a little bit, right? Like, I shouldn't really eat this, but I'm going to, and then you pay for it later. That's like,
yes, exactly. And I actually have met people that don't enjoy chocolate, where other people just love, especially the bitterness and the mouth coatingness of chocolate. So there's examples there in this, we'll start with the food part of our conversation of, what do you really like? What really agrees with you? And maybe we could then just chat about some foods that are really rock star for revving up the hormones and the body and the heart.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yes, yes. And again, this could be the list, but is everyone going to necessarily resonate with you in that regard?
Yeah. So
No.
I'll just give a concept. We need fat.
Yeah.
Fat doesn't make you fat. Actually, when they fatten up little piggies to go to market, they're giving them grains, right? So fats aren't actually physically creating, unless you go totally overboard. So fats are a bit of a misdemeanor. And I'm going to say it's one of the number one things that supports your sexual hormones. They're moving through the body on the backs of fat molecules. So it's a really important piece. So for me, the fattiest things are, for example, salmon. Yet some people don't like salmon. And some people just have never, I didn't even eat it as a kid. And then I got into it and I really, really enjoy it. So that's a really fatty, high protein, sexy food because it's nourishing our heart and our hormones and our blood flow. And that's an important piece all over our body is blood flow. Right?
Yeah,
so that's a food that, you love or hate it. I'm going to say coconut is another great fat. And I actually love dark chocolate with little coconut crisps in it because then I get both of my favorite things. And rubbing it on our skin, using it as a lubricant, putting it in your hair, eating it, I don't know, throw a tablespoon on your, on your broccoli. So that's another piece to pumpkin seeds.
And is the time in
it's the time we're seasonal here today, so the warming foods are really important, and I know you can speak to some of that, right?
Of course.
Pumpkin is great. Carve out your pumpkin, take the seeds and eat them, dry them, throw them on your salads. Really, really good fat for us to be eating.
Okay, and just on a side note, because when we were speaking earlier, you shared this recipe of like baking a stew in a pumpkin.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and just like how luscious is that? Kind of speaking of the cauldron, it's like carve out the pumpkin.
So, for some of us who grow gardens, we've got our carrots and potatoes and parsnips and all kinds of root vegetables that are harvested more in the fall, and of course pumpkins, being we're in that season right now. So if you carve out that pumpkin, and it's not just for a decoration or for Halloween, but you can put in your choice of protein and all your veggies in there, and you bake it that way. Talk about a high nutrient, warming, rich, and when our tummies are richly, I'll say coated, richly nourished, the rest of our body is as well. So just imagine you could do that for a meal, perhaps a little glass of wine, versus, grabbing some fast food drive-through burgers and cheap fries. Like, what would be more nourishing to your sexuality, to your body, your sensuousness? Just all those ingredients are so igniting, yet on the run and on the go, so many people are forgetting. It's so easy. Oh, some celery and onion in there too. These are inexpensive veggies as well, and they might be in your backyard. So I really find that there's such creative ways to even create that mood in create the mood. What did I just say? We just created the mood by the meal, mood by the meal, but we're actually changing the brain when we have that good fat in there and enhancing blood circulation everywhere. And this is a prelude to pleasure.
Right. And I was just thinking, like, it's like the slow burn. I love like soups and stews, and pre-digested, pre-cooked foods are really good, from a seasonal and Chinese medicine standpoint. But even embracing that slow burn, like, it's like, you can build and enjoy the pleasure longer, right? If you can hold that and kind of get the benefits of that. So
so I have a question for you from the Chinese medicine about cooked vegetables, like that stew and soup. I find this time of year in Canada, we're going we're in the fall, going towards winter. I prefer cooked vegetables, and in the spring, my body type really feels great with the fresher raw greens and things. So is that a seasonal part from your perspective?
A little bit, and also constitutional, like just based on your body, what your body might enjoy. Pre-digested or like cooked, slow cooked, steamed, stewed. These things are, they're already starting to break down a bit, so it's easier on our body when we take it in. So that's the idea. And as we transition into winter, here we're in fall now, summer, fall, into winter, and it's like your body's then able to use that energy elsewhere. So that's the idea. It frees up energy when you're eating foods. But like you say, in the summer, maybe your body needs something cooler, or
So really being
there are some cooling foods. We can talk about like food temperatures as well. So
true. So really being aware of our constitution.
Yeah. And that's the intuitive eating part, it's like just knowing your body, being in tune with it. Because I think we do know, right?
We do if we take the pause.
Yeah.
I always say just lean back and take that pause to notice. I mean, again, I'm seeing so many people so stressed out right now, overwhelmed with the world, life, a multitude of things. And so how do we really listen to that intuition? And I think that's the first step, is how to just listen. And for some people, I know my dad once told me I have to be in my rocking chair to be still. That was him. For others, for me, I love to walk down along the river. So really taking those times, that precious time, to really check in on how we're doing. I mean, do you have suggestions on that part?
Yeah, I mean, I think surrounding yourself in an environment where you feel relaxed and safe and able to, just stop and reflect almost. It's like you do need that space, right? That bubble where you're, I don't know, sorting things out almost in a way where you feel like you can rest and be safe. I think that's the biggest thing. And then you can feel what you're feeling and notice what you're noticing, and you can ask your body, mind, heart, like, what do I want? What do you want now? What do I need? What's going to nourish me? But I mean, speaking of that, I think when we're talking about foods and maybe activities and things, it might be like the intention of needing comfort or something nourishing maybe doesn't always translate as what they're doing. Like, I need comfort, so I'm going to go for like some Oreo cookies, or, but like, so maybe this is where that, like the rest of this conversation with the food, mood, and pleasure, it's like, what else? Okay, what kind of comfort? Like maybe explore that a little bit more. Like what?
You're right. Again, for me, it's being outside, or on a cold day, I've got my plants are in here. And so I just find for me, the plants and life helps me check in to what I'm feeling and paying attention. But I also find too, when we go back to the fats, those good fats, I feel more sustained in my belly, in my body, in my brain. And it actually supports me in these moments of paying attention. Because if I'm like craving, or I'm feeling like my blood sugar is diving, that's mismanaged eating. It's not enough proteins and fats in the diet. So I find that when I've really ramped that up, I actually can sit in a greater stillness. My brain, I think, would have been fed by those things.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit different. So this conversation is really about just like being mindful of it. What are you using it for, and what, what more can you maybe add?
Sex life, if it's for the sex life, and we've been our mindful self, we're in our bodies, we're paying attention, we're fueling up our body and even our skin with good nutrients and good fats. Then what? So the sexy part is there's play with food. So if your thing or your kink is you love chocolate and you're going to have your sweetheart drip it, down your face or whatever, that play with the food then is part of how you can use food for pleasure. It's not just, it's one way through the mouth feel, but it's in many ways. And it's setting that stage for connection as well. Whether you're alone or with a partner, it still food sets that stage, right? Good food of coming together. And let's see, there's a few nutrients in red wine. So red wine can relax somebody, and perhaps that's good as an aphrodisiac, but there's a really fine line between that glass and too many that derails, the sexuality or in the experience. So you can go too far the other way, but it's got I always say this wrong, resveratrol. Anyways, the word.
Resveratrol?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I never can say it right. But these are anti-aging nutrients. So there's, reasons why countries that have a sip of red wine with their meals live very, very long lives. We look at France and Italy, they have very long lives there. And they're also eating lots of fresh vegetables, lots of good fats and fish. Yeah. So when we're going to look at ramping up more of that aphrodisiac piece, things that are sexy are things like figs and dates. So you've got fiber and fullness and flavors. And again, it's using it as a tool to be igniting our body. If we're just eating sort of plainly, we're missing out on dynamics, and we can take those increased dynamics to all our life, right? Now, there's one thing that it's my poison. I do not like this, but I'm going to leave it with the men. There's oysters as a food, and the texture thing. It's just, anyways, but I'm going to say that I often get asked, like, should I be plying my lover with oysters? And I'm like, not if they hate it, right? So really noticing that. But I will say in oysters, there's zinc. And men, I'm going to tell you, zinc is for the dink. It's really, really, really important. So it's a missing nutrient when men are coming in with wanting to have more sustainability. We go back to nutrients. We go back to foods again.
I heard you say once, talking about the little blue pill and how that, it's not a deficiency of that. It's a deficiency of connection, touch. And maybe you could speak a little bit about that as well.
I don't believe anyone has a little blue pill deficiency or any, it's a loaded statement because it has worked wonders for some couples in enhancing intimacy, but I want to go always back to the basics, as you and I do, Nicole, on this conversation of what does it take to be alive in the body, and looking at the nutrients that support blood flow, that support, I say eat something sexy every day and make that a conversation in your reality, not your to-do list. And all the pieces we've just talked about are important, but I cannot stress enough how important these nutrients are. Good fats, more proteins, clean eating is what's changing, and the connection piece, right? But we've got to start at the basic foundation. The body's got to be good. Looking at medications, is there a side effect in there that's detrimental to performance and blood flow? And I do know that there is a time, perhaps in illness, where it's necessary, but I really encourage, the journey to figure out all the bits and pieces before that's a choice somebody makes.
Right. Yeah, because we can look at it in so many other ways, like what's really going on here. And, there might be some of that, the mind, body, heart piece, I think, in that. And there's lots to explore. So is that what someone might come to you to work with?
Yeah, we're just kind of like, okay, where do I have this is the end result. I want to have better performance, longer lasting orgasms and erections and experiences where I can, and how to get there. So your doctor might say, here, do this. And I'm going to say, well, that's fine, but we need to look at all of this first and look at what other strategies are important in being a living body. We are a living body, and doing all of that first. And so, people come for that conversation as a beginning. I think it's an awareness. Lots don't even know that we could have that conversation. And I say, how about a little bit of pumpkin seed on your salad tonight with your sweetheart, or maybe, trick or treat and eat some together. And how about, adding these nutrients? And so most don't even know that eat something sexy every day is really important. So I just bring that awareness in, because usually it's just a symptom. And I'm like, okay, so let's unpack that symptom, put all this greater awareness around it, and then see where we go.
So eat something sexy every day. And sexy is different for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm, someone might say, well, I got to have that, fries and burger in the drive-thru as my sexy thing. Well, I'm going to say, all right, maybe once a week if you had to. But you know what? What makes it sexy is maybe cooking it at home, slicing up some, fresh local potatoes and baking them yourself. Or, here in Alberta, we've got the best Alberta beef. Load it with nutrition. So I'm going to say, let's look at what's your pleasure, what's sexy for you, and adding that in mindfully and purposefully.
Mm-hmm. And there's like the slow burn I was talking about. It's almost like the
Yes.
foreplay of
The
food
foreplay
and
of
cooking,
right?
right?
Foreplay is all day.
Yeah.
And I'll even say
Foreplay all
for
day.
singles, it's single people, it's just your foreplay for your own sexy life. It's every moment. And so eating something sexy, I'm going to say start to realize the high nutrient foods and let that be your sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Let that be the fuel that ignites that desire.
Right. Well, from Chinese medicine perspective, and going back to the cauldron analogy, and we talked about it in our last episode, but just a recap that we have three burners, let's say, and the lower burner is the wood burning fire, and then in the middle you have the cauldron, and on top you have the steam. And so it's the steam that nourishes and distributes everything we need to our body and our cells. Right. But we can have a problem with not enough fire, so not enough fire to warm the cauldron and to create the steam, not hot enough. And that's like that's like the libido, that's like essence. This is and so much of Chinese medicine is based around like long healthy life, and that is an essential part. It's like our internal fire, our
you're not,
even though it's actually
stoke those fires. I love your perspective from Chinese medicine, because for me it just I have a visuals of the three compartments, the three levels, right? I am very, very visual. And the cauldron I always think of is all that magical, like good foods and good concepts that we put together. But you're right about underneath that, all that fire, that like what is that? And all the things that we've talked about are really stoking that fire. And that then stokes the fires of sexuality and stokes the fires of potential.
Right. And it's so closely related to our desire, our heart's desire.
Yes. Like I had a call recently from someone who's never had full body pleasure. But she called me because she was trying to get pregnant. And so then I'm looking at, there's the obvious, and she's got her things that she's doing, but from a very, very private, precious place, she hadn't yet experienced what her body was capable of. So we did the same thing that we're talking about today, is going back to the basics, the nutrients, the mindfulness, and stoking that fire, as well as all the other things that she was looking at. So I think this is a really key conversation for so many people in all age groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that there's a bit of a frustration that comes up when you want something and it's difficult to get, or you're like, why isn't that working for me? That might be for individually, like different areas of your life, like whether it's with a partner, your sex health, your business health, it's like, what is that other piece that, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that the frustration and the closing of that creates even more stagnation, and we want things to flow. And I
think the opposite of stagnation is full arousal, full turn on. So we're going from stagnate. How do we go from being stagnant or bored? Sometimes people are just bored and they want some tips on how to not be so bored. But from stagnation to full arousal, full turn on, and you can feel that like in every area of life. But we keep this a very personal conversation. But if you look at business, I've worked with business women that really want to be more ignited on stage. And that sometimes is the desire. We still come back to basics. We still get into this conversation, and, in triggering that change out of stagnation is critical. And for me, it's seasonal. I feel the seasons, and I want to really pay attention to how I feel and be doing supportive activities that trigger me to stay in that, inspiration and that place of turn on and arousal for life, which then on a personal level, we take that into our relationships intimately.
Hmm. For every seasonal change with Eastern medicine is well, we have, how do I describe, every pivot we go back to the earth, back to the center,
Mm,
our soil, right? So it's almost like we're in a season, we come back, we rest, we ground, we assess,
mm.
we create, envision what we want for the next cycle, or close up what, resolve what is not resolved, and then from that point we move on. And so, like, I think the stagnation comes when the flow and the pauses get stuck, right? Because I think that there are like down times, and that's okay, but for the more active times, it's almost like a recharging. Because if you're going to be fully aroused about what, like, you need to be connected to something that's like
Mhm.
triggering that, right?
I think an arousal is a sassy little word, and it means a
I
lot of
really
things.
like the thought. I never thought about it like that. The opposite of stagnation is full on arousal. I like
Arousal.
it though,
And so,
because
yes,
it's
that's,
like
yeah,
it's
the obvious.
alive.
Yeah, it's the obvious sexual arousal of turn on and desire sexually. But that arousal that, like, it's like we're rising up, which is very masculine, right? The rising, literally. But it's that awakening as energy as well. And what I love what you just said about coming back to the earth, because I'm always visual. It's like, oh yeah, that's where the carrots are and the potato and the
Yeah.
parsnips. That's the
Yeah.
season that we're in the fall, where we've pulled all those things out, and we've literally come to the earth through the seasons as you're describing, but literally here in where we are, we're literally in the earth, pulling up those vegetables, those pumpkins, and really honoring that. I love that concept of the coming back to the earth. I didn't really think of it that way.
Yeah. And that's why we like, in from Chinese medicine perspective, the root vegetables to really nourish the earth, because like
Mm.
they were like, or ginseng is a really popular one. This is a cool story because it grows underground through super harsh winters, and yet is so warming, like, and it looks like a little person. Like, there's so many reasons to eat it, right? But it's that it retains its heat, and
Mhm.
it's fire of life through
Mhm.
really low times. So we eat that to invigorate our bodies, because it's like us too can come back to life from a deep freeze.
Absolutely. So there's things
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you brought up ginseng, because there's things like maca as well that are
Yeah.
quite invigorating for the body. You know, I hate to be so generic with the anti-stress, but there's so much tension going on, surface tension in the world, that some of these herbs are just taking those stress hormones and, what was the right word? Managing,
Yeah.
supporting,
Hmm.
so they don't run our lives, because that's where we're at. These, stressful moments of go, go, go has derailed a lot of basic hormones, pleasure hormones, our sexual hormones, our
Right.
digestive.
Because it's like, well, I don't know. Do you think in times of stress that our instincts for reproduction, I forget, like, does that get heightened or blocked off? You know, like,
Well,
like, but or just when we're just in a survival
yes, we've got
mode,
high
do we have
cortisol.
room to play? Do we have room for
Yeah,
pleasure?
yeah. And I think the
Maybe
things
that's
that are
it.
supportive to, for example, melatonin, these really soothing um, ingredients that just support our body in a crazy world. A
Okay.
crazy world. And so,
Yeah. Okay. So how can we play a little bit more with
oh, let's
this?
play right now. Okay, play.
Okay.
Uh, Play with which parts? What exactly do
Which
you mean?
parts? Yeah. Do you want to play with?
Oh, well, that would be a start.
Yeah.
Coconut oil is a very good place to start. To play with yourself and to be in contact with yourself, your body. I know for a lot of people, we're just hands on a computer or on a steering wheel, and we've forgotten. So it's about our body, and it's knowing touch. You know, do you like this? Is that your turn on? Or do you like this? Or maybe something like this, right? So I'm going to say to play, we're always talking about the body, you and I. So let's just play with the touch of our body for ourselves, or with a partner, where you can actually decide, I think I like this. No, I like this. And you can play back and forth with touch as a beautiful. Remember, sex is everything. Intercourse is intercourse, but it's all of this other piece that's so juicy. And you're talking at the beginning there about squeezing that juice out. And so coming back to the body from that touch, and I'm going to say using oils, touching self, touching each other, and really noticing, oh, that was good. Oh, no, not so much. And really playing with that, I think, is a great step in foreplay, in getting to know your partner's preferences, getting to know where their magic little spots are. You know, behind the knees are quite ignored these days. Behind the knees, inside the elbows. So how's that for an example of play?
Oh, I like it. And then I think about even behind the knees and the elbows, and my mind goes to like acupuncture, Chinese medicine. I mean, because it's so visual, but these are viewed as, so imagine we start with like the little spring, you know, of water from the mountain, like a little spring turns to a stream, to like the river, to the pool, and the elbows and the knees are like the vast ocean that is like the deepest. So also really interesting, you know, to really, you're accessing someone's, like you're tapping into that huge pool of pleasure.
Pool of pleasure. I just love how it's our conversation. We're so supported by the Chinese medicine and the visuals, because it's pools of pleasure and the streams of water. And I just love that about your work, is it's very expressive. And I think when that's playful to me, when something is
totally
igniting.
I know, and just like getting rid of the surface tension, you know, because this also comes back to asking for what you want, knowing what you want, and asking for it. And, you know, that's maybe a big step for someone on like in general, but then you add sex to it. It's like, oh my gosh.
So you know? I'm going to just comment on surface tension, if I could. So, you know, if you have like that plastic wrap or saran wrap, and it's Christmas dinner and you've got leftover mashed potatoes, and you pull that plastic wrap so tight over the bowl, right? We know that you can actually like ping coins off of it. And it's like, yes, I got that saran wrap on there. Nice.
Yes, I got it. Good.
Got it. But, you know, sometimes, I mean, usually I use leftover containers, but sometimes at Christmas, you just want to cover things because there's so much to do and you don't want to spend all your time in the kitchen. So anyways, you cover it all up, and that's what I call surface tension. So in our body, in our fascia, the fascia is a whole system that covers and coats every organ, every bone. And that, I feel, is like the surface tension inside of us, is holding that tension. And we're living that way, adapting that way. And that's like a normal for some people, is to be in that state. So when I go and I work and do some body work, some, you know, craniosacral work, it's about taking that surface tension. And so if I can get my hand, or teach couples actually how to just really feel into their body from the surface, and deeper and deeper and deeper contact, we start to take that surface tension down. And then I always say, well, then you can get into the mashed potatoes. But you can't get there with that full-on surface tension. And so when I kind of give that visual for people, they're going, oh, and then they get it for themselves, because they feel it in their headaches, or in their, you know, their gut, or in just the way they answer, right? I would rather answer from my luscious mashed potato body than my stretched, perfect way of being. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and it's, so then we get back
because this we can even take it further. Like the saran wrap is see-through, so you're like, yeah, see, there's my mashed potatoes, but you can't get to it.
Yes,
you know,
it's pulled too tight.
Yeah.
Or the heart center, like, you know, your work's always about the heart center. So if that surface tension is making, you're literally pinging off coins, how does love come in? You know, for ourselves, as well as from experiencing it with others. We're so many of us, I've noticed, tend to be we're deflecting sometimes. And so,
Right.
yeah, and you're just like, I want that, right? And you can see it and can't get there. And as we soften with all of the awareness that we talk about and all of the things that we're working towards, mashed potatoes. Nothing's better than
Mashed
afterward
potatoes.
mashed potatoes.
Playing with food. Yeah. So, okay, for, I think the weekend project is to play with food. Oh, we've got a comment here. The smell of Nutella always gets me in the mood.
Oh,
Ooh, I love it. Is it the hazelnut or chocolate that makes me want to have
well,
playtime?
it's because you like it. Yeah, that's what gives you pleasure. But
Yeah,
it's
you can like warm that up a little bit, get the
Oh.
drizzle.
And it's comforting too. I know lots of people
Sexy.
actually grew up with Nutella on their toast, so it's comfort. But the nuts and the high nutrients, high good fats, and
Right.
yeah, and it's so aromatic as well, and the texture
Mhm.
texture of it.
Yeah, and there's lots of fatty, good fats in those.
And so
those
when
things,
that's
right?
somebody's our pleasure, I'm going to suggest as you smell it and taste it and it's enjoyable. Now notice your mouth. Like, does it coat your mouth? Does it stick to your teeth? Is it on the roof of your mouth like a peanut butter? Is it making your saliva come up? That's a little bit around wine tasting, but being aware of the mouth feel as we're talking about the food and the mood connection here. It's a big piece. It's not just to, suck it back, drink it back. And it's like, oh yeah. And notice. I mean, when we started eating as kids, it was just, eat your baby food. And we never really stopped to notice the textures. And again, it's the texture of life and the connections we so desire. It starts in the mouth. So does a kiss.
Yeah.
So does a kiss.
It all starts with a kiss, right?
It starts in your mouth. And really that's a portal where we, take our nutrients in, experience a kiss. And it's literally the portal all the way down through our system.
Yeah.
Right. So
Just a big tube. And it's amazing the transformation and magic that really happens in the middle, right? Like
yes.
we are just a big walking
alchemical.
alchemical. Yeah.
And the other thing too is when we're in our mouth, I'm going to say might use words with our partner or ourselves, like, oh, sweetheart, oh, cupcake, oh, cookie, oh, my cookie, my sweet thing. We use words that are, loving, right? And if we've got disconnection all the way down and we're talking about the other end, we talk about and call people names that might be, an ass.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like we want to make sure that whole sweetness.
What is with that? That's so interesting.
Right. So we want to make sure that whole digestive tract, with again the nutrients and being mindful and in our body, is relaxed. We can't have beautiful sexual relations when we're twisted in our guts. And so many people have irritable bowel. It's like rampant. It's like some kind of normal. So we have to know, like, where you are. I want to stay up in I want to be a little cupcake or a sweetheart, right? And just keeping that sweetness, not literally, because I'm not actually suggesting we eat a lot of sweets, but just noticing that awareness is where that kiss begins, the kiss of life, right?
But I think that's what I was talking about earlier with you want to be a sweetheart, you want to be sweet, you want to be nice, right? So you eat, like subconsciously there's I want to be these things, so I'm going to eat sweet foods, then you're too sweet, you're pre-diabetic or, something like that.
Yeah.
But if we explored that sweetness in a little bit of a different way,
yes,
it's like, oh, what is sweet? What does give you joy of life? What does nourish?
And then to me, the sweetness of a kiss, for example, I mean, whatever it is, watermelon is so nutritious, for example, and like really feeling that in the mouth. That's a sweetness. It's not a cupcake and piece of cake and too much pie and all those kinds of things. It's really noticing how to be in that energy of receiving, awareness, openness. Because if we're tight all the way down, our mood and personality gets a little bit tight on the other end. And we have to make sure that everything's, lit up and smiling to be, I believe, not fake, but to be in connection. And notice, and I also respect how you always bring us back home, back to the earth, back to the body, so that we can regroup and recapture some of that essence that happens on a busy day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking of, now I have to come to mind all these like examples of how we relate to food, to our mood.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a term from Newfoundland, like the East Coast, I think. I don't know if people say it out west, but they go, I'm rotted.
Yeah.
I'm rotted. It means like, and if you think about food that goes into your body that doesn't digest well, that's just like kind of rotting and not really providing you.
The expression I've heard is I'm so gutted. Like,
I'm gutted.
Like, literally. And I'm like, we say these things and I'm like, wowzer. How interesting our words are, again, coming out of our mouth, our words with our reality, our mood. And
so cool.
It's amazing. I love our chats.
Yeah, I know.
You're amazing. You're inspiring, and we can really play with this. So I encourage people to, connect with me and play in the pleasure of a conversation. I think you might do the same. And it's just really opening the door for people to have a quick conversation to see what it is that they desire and where we can.
How can we find you?
Yeah, it's easy. MaryFrances.ca. Go in there, send me an email, and we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Yep. Have a little chat.
Play and pleasure. And how can our food be play and pleasure? And how can that enhance our mood and therefore everything else?
Yeah.
It's interesting how things taste better too when we're in a.
Well, that's the thing is like you're actually consciously engaged in enjoying something. So you're receiving more out of it than if you were just like tunnel vision, just doing it for like out of habit or unconsciously, because we do need to eat and drink to survive, right? So there's like that unconscious, but if we add in that mindfulness around it, it's a totally different experience. And it is the portal of entry through the mouth into like a more luscious and pleasurable life.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, MaryFrances.
It's always amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, losing my earpieces. All right. Yeah. So we can find you at MaryFrances.ca.
Yes.
MaryFrances.ca.
Yes.
And a pleasure and play conversation. Yeah. Thank you. I hope you have a great weekend and
thanks, dear.
Pumpkin pom-pom filled adventures.
I'm gonna eat a little pumpkin this weekend, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Eat something sexy. Yes,
eat something sexy every day. Yeah. All right. And sometimes it's just how you put it in.
Yeah. Eat something sexy or sexily, right?
Yes.
Eat it sexily.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Eat something sexy, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Thank you. And what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you?
That I never ever forget.
Yeah.
I'm going to take away that I'm talking to myself often on these kind of conversations. And I'm going to take away just a greater visual of coming back to the earth each season and to remember every day, eat something sexy because I can forget too. So I'll take away those reminders.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. And I will also eat sexy things and enjoy that. And fats, eating more fats. Yeah. All right. Good. Thanks. Any questions? Just reach out to us and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Bye everyone.
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.